Welcome to the 36th episode of the GameFor Podcast. In this episode, still recording from home, we'll be talking about some of our favorite tabletop games, past and present. I'm Adam.
I'm Matt.
And we're part of GameFor. This is the GameFor Podcast. We are talking about tabletop gaming, how to get into it, how to enjoy it more, how to build community in ways that you still can in this day and age. And we do an episode every 2 weeks and try to kind of tackle some ideas within tabletop gaming to help you enjoy your tabletop gaming a bit more. We've been enjoying our tabletop gaming, even though we're kind of having to enjoy it in different ways these days. What have you been doing in your hobby, in your tabletop gaming hobby recently, Matt?
My main thing, I've been painting up a new kill team for Warhammer. I'm doing a Blood Angels team. I think I assembled them pre-COVID or right around COVID, but I finally got them painted, or getting them painted. Got actually a couple nearly done now. So
I think I saw one on your Instagram.
Yeah, he's my I think he was a sample from the new 9th edition version or whatever. And I painted him up at the same time, so he's been kind of my test one if I'm not sure about stuff. So
that's always a good idea, is to have some sort of test model if you can.
Yeah, so I kind of work ahead on him first and then kind of tweak what I want when I go with the rest of them. But yeah, he's basically done, except for I had tried the new basing on him. It's a tactical paint from Citadel called, I believe, Mars Earth or something like that. It's
it's supposed to be crackle paint almost.
Yeah, and so it's in the picture I think I posted on Instagram. It started to crackle, but yeah, this morning it was all nice and crackled and stuff. Still kind of a weird Pepto-Bismol color, so I'm not sure exactly what color I'm going to paint it, but I really like how the texture came out. So
yeah, I find that with the texture paints specifically from Citadel, is I have a tendency to put them on before I prime, and then I prime over the top of them because I don't like. I don't know what it is. I just don't like the look of them when you just put them on the last step. That's why they make them in different colors and things like that, so that you can just put them on last step and then they're done. But I still like to paint over them for some reason. I think it also helps, especially with the crackle paint, because the crackle paint can be kind of fragile. You know what I mean? Because it's got to dry in a certain way and then it's crackling. Right. And so that's why I like to prime over the top of it a little bit. And it maybe reduces the amount of crackle effect a little bit, but I don't know. But it's interesting stuff. I like the texture stuff.
Yeah, one of the texture things I have is it's almost like a weird snowy type thing. So that was the one I was thinking about using. It's more of a light gray, and I think it might pop. But I had picked that stuff up yesterday, so I was like, oh, I'll try that first. So yeah, I'm still kind of experimenting before I get ready to do that. But yeah, basically, I can play with them as is now, so that's a good step.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Painted is always better than non-painted. What other kind of stuff you've been doing?
I've been starting to print out a lot of the stuff that came with the latest Monster Fight Club train, the Metropolis stuff. I know they've got their ice one out right now, but
yeah, they've got a current running Kickstarter. But previous to that, they did have urban buildings and stuff like that.
Yeah, so and that's I believe it's they did it at kind of hero scale, so 32 millimeter. So I've done some scaling around, because I know you can go up to 40 pretty easily to get it, Crisis Protocol size, or
for the Marvel
down
game.
to down to the 28, which is closer to what you use for most things. So I played around with a little bit of that. Some of their train scatter pieces of stuff I've been playing around with, and
they had a whole bunch of different things mailboxes and
they've got dumpster. Their
Yeah.
dumpster is super. Dumpster has a bunch of inserts, so you can have the empty dumpster. You can have a dumpster filled with garbage. You can even have a dumpster that's on fire.
I was going to ask if there was a dumpster fire. It is 2020.
Yeah, so I might even get that one painted up for my desk.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
So yeah, I've been doing that, and then Black Scrolls released some more of their city buildings, and I had gotten kind of behind with the FDM printing, so started printing up some of their new stuff. They've got a lumber mill so I printed that up. That came out looking really good. And then it printed up all the terrain for inside. Like they've got actual like a sawmill and lumber and all that stuff that kind of comes out of it and stuff. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah,
Cool.
that's so been playing around with that, and then finally started get. I think yesterday was going to be one of the last few nice days we have out, maybe this week. So I've been starting to prime everything that I'm not positive I can airbrush prime inside and doing
Mm-hmm.
it with the rattle can outside.
I think actually tomorrow. Well, wait, no, Friday. I think Friday's supposed to be pretty nice too. It's supposed to be maybe in the 70s.
Yeah. So I just
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
want to wait all till that day because then
sure.
you go, oh, I have way too much. I still feel like I have too much. So
Yeah, now
yeah,
is
I
the
did a
time to
bunch of
get
stuff.
things
Yeah.
ready. Yeah, for rattle can season. I agree.
I think there was a
Um,
couple pieces that were from like last fall that I didn't get done in time. So
sure. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I have any terrain right now that I need to prime. I probably ought to think about it though. I've got other stuff I've been building, so I don't have any current terrain projects that I can think of. Although I probably should. There's like actually a couple that I probably should. But um, nice. Yeah, I've
yeah,
been.
that's me. How
Yeah,
about
yeah.
you?
I've been. Let's see. So I was working on at a Nurgle, one of the Chaos gods, a Nurgle aligned Warcry warband for Age of Sigmar Warcry, the skirmish version of Age of Sigmar. Well, it's not the skirmish version; it's a skirmish game based off of Age of Sigmar. Um, and so I'd already finished the 5 like normal size kind of regular guys, and I had done them on my Twitch stream, and they were finished. And then I started working on the 6th member of that warband, who was a Pusgoyle Blight Lord, is the official nomenclature that Games Workshop puts on that guy.
Hmm.
And he's basically just a big fat kind of decaying guy sitting on top of a big huge mutant scary bug. And Pusgoyle. I don't know what a Pusgoyle is, but it's apt. It's basically. But yeah, finished him up mostly on stream. I got him real close, and I just had to like finish up the base and some other things that were kind of not real interesting for people to watch. So I finished those up off stream.
Got it.
So I will probably take some fancy photos of him and his 5 friends. And put them up on Instagram and stuff. I'll probably shoot those this weekend at some point. I like to go to the studio, and I've got a bunch of terrain there and lights and things like that, and I can kind of do
Nice.
some nicer looking images that aren't just like put it on a white background or put it on a like a dark background. I like to make a little scene. That's what I like to do lately. I've been doing it a bunch with a lot of the stuff I've been painting, just because
Yeah, they've been
I
coming
find
out
it
really
more
well.
interesting. Well, thanks. Yeah, no, I like it. Um, if you want to see those things, you can just search for Tabletop Minions on Instagram. Your Instagram is Gaming Matter, right?
Yep. Yep.
Mattr, no E in it.
Yep. Same as the website and
Yep.
Twitter and
Yeah. And then currently on Twitch, what I'm painting, I painted some of it on Monday night, and I'll be painting again on Friday. Probably just the 2 sessions. I'm painting these sort of weird. Well, it's from a current Kickstarter that's going on, and it's a viewer reached out to me and he's like, "Hey, I'm doing this Kickstarter." And and I get that a lot from people. Different Kickstarters reach out to the channel and stuff. But he sent me a link, and I just clicked on it and checked it out. And the models were so cool that I was like, if you want to send me some of these during the Kickstarter, I will paint them on Twitch, because I just really wanted them. And it's kind of
oh,
like
nice.
a weird 3 pigs. I think the name of the company is called Monkstone Miniatures.
Okay.
And they've got a current Kickstarter going on, and it's like the 3 pigs and other denizens of Dunmere or something like that. And it's just a set of like 7 resin models sculpted by this guy named Jack, and he does really good work. And I just as soon
Nice.
as I saw them, I was like, I'm like, I want the pig with the helmet, and then he also sent me. There was kind of a sort of a goblin sort of troll kind of lady with a wooden shield that looks like it was made out of like possibly not a door, but maybe like a shutter or something like that. I don't know. And then there's also this other character named Glom, and he is like a snail, and he's like carrying, he's got a snail shell on his back, but he's got a bunch of stuff strapped to the snail shell, and he's kind of walking. He's got a walking stick, but he's got feet. Like he's not a snail. Like it's very strange. They're really
Interesting.
kind of, yeah, they're cool models. And so I built the 3 of those and primed them up, and I started painting them on Monday. And I'll continue. I'm doing a lot of contrast color with them actually, because it's just fast, and because I primed them like with a black and white kind of zenithal highlighted prime. It's actually working out pretty quickly. So
Yeah, I'm
but
really
yeah,
liking that look. Like
yeah,
I've
it is.
been starting to do it, and yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, it does. It speeds things up a lot. Once you get the hang of the prime, it speeds things up a good deal. And then lastly, actually last night I started building some Night Haunt spooky boys for Warcry. I'm going to be building. Well, I'm not going to just build one Night Haunt warband. I've actually got 4 different lists, which are all slightly different that I want to mess with, and so I took like of the 4 lists, what are all the combinations of models that I need? So I'll just do them all at once. And it's maybe, I don't know, 12, 14 models tops. But so I started building on them, and then hopefully I can start painting. I'm hoping to start painting with them actually on Monday on Twitch. So, it's Halloween. You want to have spooky ghosts and stuff like that. So that'll be fun. I'm looking forward to doing that as well. And I'm just trying to figure out color scheme. Like I'm gonna end up having to do a good portion of it in airbrush to start, which I can't do on stream because I can't airbrush on stream because it's just not. I can't
Right.
get my rig in there, or I could probably bring my airbrush out of the room that it's in, bring it out but it's just a pain in the butt. So, but yeah, it'll be. Hopefully, I can get a bunch of it done that way. So that'll be good. So yeah, that's pretty much all the stuff I've got. As far as what I've been working on, and you've been working on your stuff and everything, you staying healthy and safe. I know that our area of the country right now is a bit of a hot spot for
A hot
COVID and
mess.
such. Yeah, and a hot mess. That's true too. So we've been staying away from the game stores and that kind of thing, and we haven't. It's very difficult to get out and play, obviously, right now for pretty much everybody, but specifically around here, it's a terrible idea. So we were kind of thinking, Matt and I, about like, well, what about like what other kind of subject could we talk about? And we started thinking about like, potentially like, some favorite games of ours, both past and present, like things that we used to love versus, well, not versus, I guess that's maybe,
Fight.
but yeah, exactly. Yeah. But things that we used to love and things that we love now. And to some degree, there's a potential for some, a little bit of not sameness, but you might have, something that you still love, even though you loved it back in the day, that kind of thing. And I think that's true to a degree. But yeah, so like back in the day, and like roughly what age was it when you started playing like nerd style games is what I'll call them, like not Monopoly or Life or
Yeah,
Sorry, but like,
I would say kind of that middle schooly type time frame, like
mhm,
that, like 6th grade. I would think was about the right time. 6th, maybe 7th. I think it was 6th grade though,
yeah,
or grade 6, however,
mhm,
depending on where you're from.
yeah.
But yeah, it was around there because I know like in grade 5 is when I first started reading like the Dragonlance series.
Oh,
Um,
okay, cool. Yeah.
and so then it got me like really, into looking at that stuff, and then finding out that there's a game to do and all that stuff. So
Hmm. I think I probably started about 5th grade myself, which is right towards the end of grade school, and you know, we, I don't know about you. Did you start with Dungeons and Dragons?
um yeah, I think so. I think Dungeons and
Hmm.
Dragons was the first like non like like mass market game that I played.
Yeah.
Not saying that D&D is a small game by any means, but like
Well,
not,
back then it was.
right, but not like a
Yeah.
Monopoly and
Right.
Life and all that stuff. But yeah, I was
Hmm.
D&D was definitely that first like get go into, we're playing that, more of a true tabletop um game. Try not to
Yeah.
gatekeep, but at the same time.
Right. No. Yeah. But I mean, like, there's differences between you're right, like the mass market games, even though now a lot of the types of games that we would consider to be, like for lack of a better term, nerd style games, you can get at Target. You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. You're starting to see
Right.
games like that show up. But back then, you only saw like Parker Brothers, Milton Bradley, that kind of stuff
Exactly.
at
Yeah.
department stores and things like that. And if you wanted
Yeah.
to get
And you're right.
Dungeons and Dragons, maybe you went to I don't know, like Walden Books. I remember they used to carry that kind of stuff.
Yep. I had a
Yeah.
Mr. Paperback was the big thing in my area in New
Mm-hmm.
England. So yeah, always used to go there, and then starts, and I think they were smart and they had all that stuff right next to all the books. So when I started getting into the books, and kind of like read through everything that was at the local library, and was like, okay, I'm gonna have to actually buy stuff now, with gift cards or birthday money or whatever. And then it was
Mm-hmm.
like right next to that was all the D&D books, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah,
No,
those
it's
look cool.
smart. It's smart marketing. You either get somebody who's interested in the D&D game and then show them, oh, there's a bunch of novels, or vice versa. It's either
Hmm.
start with the novels and had that. Yeah, it's a smart thing to do. Um, but yeah, it's I would say for me as well, Dungeons and Dragons was the start. Was a
Now, what version were
guy.
you on? Like the original, like core Dungeons
Yeah,
and
because I'm
Dragons?
older than you, so I don't even know that it was advanced Dungeons and Dragons when I started. Advanced Dungeons
Okay,
and Dragons came along a short, no, maybe not shortly, a little while after I started. But when I first started, it was the original, like Red Box or whatever. Not the original. I mean, like the original D&D stuff were tiny little books that almost looked like they were photocopied.
right.
I've got a friend who's actually owns some of those because he's older than me even. And but yeah, it's the like that's kind of where I got started in that kind of stuff as well.
Nice.
And you attempt to somebody has to attempt to be a dungeon master, and
Hmm.
that's not the easiest thing for a fifth grader to do, but we still had a good time. I mean, the games were maybe not necessarily as brilliantly paced, and
Right.
there wasn't a lot of story particularly. It was a lot of like, okay, you've come across six orcs, and then there you have a start a fight and that kind of stuff. But
Yeah, I
um
had the advantage of friends' older brothers. I didn't have an older
mm,
brother myself. I'm the oldest, but yeah, I
mm,
had friends and their older brothers. They were just like looking for people, to come in. So they'd let us play. We were usually the little minions in their group and
mhm,
stuff. But we had
mhm.
fun. And then we eventually like, no, we're gonna run our own games.
Yeah, yeah. No, yeah, it was. I think that the big benefit to some degree for a game like Dungeons and Dragons is it is relatively accessible, especially for younger people,
Hmm.
because of the. In many situations, it can be a lower cost to entry. Like maybe you just ask for the player's handbook for Christmas,
Right.
or like a birthday or something like that, or you and your friend share one and borrow it back and forth, and that kind of thing.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
also
like
pretty
yeah, I think
useful.
when we first started, like his brother just like made us a character sheet and
Sure.
then and told us what to roll and stuff. And then yeah, we finally got the player's handbook. And then you get like the DM book and monster manual was a nice thing.
Hmm.
And then like if you were really cool, and I wasn't cool enough to have this, was like the for like second edition, they had all the classes had like their own like faux leather brown covers.
Hmm. I
So
remember
like if
those.
you were a
Yeah.
ranger, it had all the extra stuff in there, like
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. No, there was definitely a bunch of like really cool books that were kind of just specifically designed for specific classes, and that
hmm.
was very cool. Yeah. Um, what other kind of stuff did you play like back in the day?
Um when I think I might have even talked about this on a previous podcast, but yeah, playing D&D, we would go to a convention at the local university like twice a year,
Hmm.
and one the local hobby shop guy that was there selling stuff, he saw that we were young. We were kind of just hanging out, trying to pass the time for our next stuff. And he introduced us to Magic the Gathering. And that set off, the buying booster packs and everything for many, many years.
That's how they get you. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. 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 No, that's I've been to small conventions too, where like there's always, and it's small conventions, local conventions. It's rare that you have a big group. I mean, it depends, I suppose. At least the ones that I've been to, it's usually like a small group that are like drafting over here, kind of by the side or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. It's rare that I go to a local convention. At least most of the local conventions I've gone to have been pretty board game heavy, but there is usually some Magic going on. But like there are also obviously good sized Magic tournaments, but those are usually held in stores. It seems. You know what I mean?
Right.
Did you go to like things like that? Because Friday Night Magic probably wasn't even started yet back when you got
Yeah,
into
and
Magic, was it?
I don't think we even had a true gaming store. Like
Hmm.
really our like bookstore was probably the closest we had to that. Because I want to say that it was there, and then I'm trying to think. I think there was another store that kind of opened up that would sell boosters as well, but it was more of a baseball card shop too.
Yeah,
So it
yeah.
was just kind of they just sold everything that was shiny cardboard. So my brother would
Hmm.
go in for his baseball cards. I wasn't doing baseball cards anymore, so I would get my Magic cards and stuff. And
Yeah. Like I got into Magic a bit in when I was in college, and I would buy them at the cards. There was no game store in my town at the time, and but there was a Hobby Town USA, and so I would
mm,
go to the Hobby Town and get boosters from them and stuff. So yeah, that was I did a little bit of that. I didn't play a ton, and it was funny too because back then we were like playing with these like huge decks. We weren't kind of following like normally it's like a 60 card deck these days is what people seem to play with for the most part. We were just playing with like all of our cards for nearly,
oh
and
geez, yeah,
and then it was really hard to shuffle them because there's such big decks, right?
right.
And so what we did was there's a company in town that sells all kinds of weird products, and one of the products that they sell in their catalog are these battery powered card shuffling machines.
Oh, like for like blackjack and stuff or poker and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and so you'd put a deck in there and you'd push a button and it would shuffle them, or you'd put two decks in, it would shuffle them together into one, and usually mulch like one out of every 15 or 20 cards, just like bend it and stuff like that. And
Hmm.
nowadays like those players would just be like, you can't do that. Like we weren't putting anything into sleeves or
Oh
anything
yeah,
along
no,
those
that's
lines.
what I was thinking.
Yeah,
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 you couldn't sleeve it. Why would you sleeve it? No, that's
yeah, exactly. Now it's standard, it seems, but yeah, back then you just didn't do that kind of stuff.
yeah. I
So
think it's like a rule. Like it can only it's like a 5 second rule. Like it can't be out of the pack before it goes in the sleeve for like 5 seconds, or the
well, I think
card
actually in
loses its
tournament,
power.
I haven't played a tournament ever. Well, I don't know if I've ever played a Magic tournament. I used to play with friends, but I think nowadays in tournaments, I do think you have to have them in sleeves with opaque backs because
Yeah,
some
they don't
people
want
can
any
tell the
kind of tells.
difference.
Hmm.
Yeah, some people can tell the difference between the different like densities of print ink and stuff like that on the backs to figure out stuff or whatever. So yeah, that you have to have them in sleeves.
Yeah,
Um, so that's kind of interesting. Um, were you doing both of them simultaneously, AD&D and Magic the Gathering?
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
It was, and that was kind of the nice thing was like Magic was nice because you could play with just two people, and then if we had a bigger group, more time, we would, do kind of the D&D stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean, I got to figure that probably there are plenty of games of Magic that have cropped up while waiting for everybody to show up to the D&D game. I mean, it's
Right.
just
Or
kind of
even
like,
yeah, or if like the DM was like if like the party was split for some reason, there would even be side games of that going on too. And
mhm, mhm. Yeah, that's
yeah.
a little bit hand in hand, in my opinion. Um, but yeah, what other kind of stuff did you play back in the day?
Um I BattleTech was another one from kind of that middle school age thing.
Hmm.
I that one was kind of a I think I only played with a couple friends, and we kind of played it back and forth. I was more interested in like the lore and reading it and doing some like solo stuff. So I didn't play a ton of it, but that was another one that I really liked.
Yeah, yeah, that's actually for me too. In middle school, about time is when I got into BattleTech as well. That was probably about 10 years before you did, but yeah,
Yeah.
it was like when I was playing, we started playing, it was little cardboard cutouts of the mechs, like little
Okay.
cardboard rectangles on plastic standees, and that's you played on the hex grid and stuff. And then when I got into college, then I started buying um some plastic but mostly metal models for BattleTech, and really poorly painting them up. Like one of the earliest miniatures I ever painted was an Atlas, and I think I painted it with the same paint that I had left over from the last time that I had painted a model airplane. So that was the squared glass bottles
I
from
was going
like
to say that.
testers enamel.
Yep,
Yeah,
the tester stuff. Yep.
yeah, not great. Not a particularly good look, but at the time I was like, well, they're painted, and so yeah, it was an interesting game. It was like there's so many little tiny circles to fill out, like as you took
Oh yeah,
damage
that
and
was the
stuff like
thing.
that.
But you
Yeah,
felt like you're like, oh, this is so realistic because I have to fill out tons of little circles that.
yeah,
You
exactly.
know.
Yeah, it was like taking a test in college,
Yeah.
but
Did you ever do Mech Warrior, which was like the
the
RPG side of it?
no, I never did. I had some friends who played it and would talk about it from time to time, but
Yeah.
I never did though. Yeah,
I think I maybe filled in like one game one time, but yeah, I didn't really get into that.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Like, I don't know if it has something to do with it just, I don't know. Like, there's certain RPGs to me that just make sense as RPGs, and there's other ones where it seems like I just don't know. Like, that game to me was so cemented in the tabletop, hex based experience that trying to make it into a game that was more, role playing seemed a little odd to me at the time, I guess. I don't know. But I didn't,
Yeah.
I wasn't as much of a role player. Like I said, I kind of slowed down a lot on it after grade school. I played a little bit again in college, but that was pretty much about it. Um, but yeah, BattleTech I enjoyed. I've tried to look into it in the last 5 years and stuff like that. And there's just a lot of paperwork these days is the way it comes across. Back then when you're
Yeah.
younger and stuff like that and games were like that, you just were like, okay, well, this makes sense. I gotta have an eight
Right.
and a half by 11 sheet for like, that's double sided for like every
Hmm.
Mac. And nowadays I'm just kind of like, I don't know. I mean, it could take a really long time, that game too.
Right. Yeah. Like you spend a whole day playing, but that was okay. Like now I'm like,
Sure.
I don't know. So yeah, I've got like the starter set from is it Catalyst, I believe,
Yeah,
the
Catalyst Game
latest one,
Labs.
and
Hmm.
I've opened it, I've looked at it, but I have not like amped myself up enough to kind of revisit it.
Yeah, I played a demo of what is known as the new classic BattleTech made by Catalyst. I played a demo at Gen Con, I don't know, 2017, 2018, just to see how much, because I'd heard they'd streamlined it some, and I
Yeah.
played it it was like there's just a whole table full of us just playing on little 2 foot by 2 foot boards, and it was one-on-ones, and each of us had like one mech, and it was just a guy from the company just going through and teaching us all, like, okay, this is what you do here, and then step two, you do this and that one. And so we started playing, me and this other guy who was about my age, and both of us had been like, we're lapsed, BattleTech players, and both of us were just trying to see what the new streamline was about.
Uh huh.
And honestly, after about the second turn, we're like, this seems almost identical to the old game. We don't see a difference here. And then we just started playing ahead, and the guy from the company would come along and be like, what are you guys doing? And we're like, we know how to play this. We're fine. And because he was like, he thought we were like, going off the rails, which we were, but we were just going ahead on the rails, I guess. So
Yeah.
yeah, I do, and I know that they've made a game called Alpha Strike, I believe, which is supposed to be a little bit more streamlined, but I've had a
Mm.
hard time finding. I found the models at one point for a good price, and I was like, "Yep, I'll do that." And then but the book was not available, and then later on the book was available, but then the models were not available, and so
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So it's been a bit of a thing, but what other kind of stuff
Nice.
did you play that you spent a lot of time on?
Once I kind of got into high school, and even some early college, it was kind of more of like group activities. So like Balderdash, was a fun one that we would play kind of as a group.
Hmm.
Uh, and that was always kind of fun way
It's
to
like a
just kind
party
of
game kind of thing, yeah.
yeah, it was light, but still kind of interesting.
Hmm.
Had enough trivial stuff for me that it itched my trivia stuff without having to go full Trivial Pursuit on everybody, where
Right.
people don't like playing with you anymore because for some reason remember weird things.
Yeah. Yeah.
That, and then lots and lots of Axis and Allies. Like
Mm.
I lost so much time to Axis and Allies. There was it was Axis and Allies is why I became a Pink Floyd fan, because one of our friends, his house was typically the place we played at, because he had a good little spot that we could kind of keep the game open if we needed to, but we usually
Hmm.
didn't. And Dad had just thousands of vinyl records, and
Oh, okay.
but he was a big Pink Floyd guy, so typically, yeah, Pink Floyd would be put onto the record, and so from 6, 7 o'clock at night till 4 or 5 in the morning, we'd be listening to that stuff while playing. So,
I was trying to figure out how the two were related, but you explained it.
yep,
That makes sense. Yeah, yeah. I
yep.
was like,
It was a weird way to go around it, but
no, no,
yeah,
yeah, that's
because I was a big Led Zeppelin guy, so we would start with some Led Zeppelin stuff, and then and then he started playing more Pink Floyd, and then it kind of became nostalgic on its own by doing that.
sure.
So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I haven't played that much. I played a little bit of Axis and Allies. I played a little bit of it in college, but I played it with a group of friends who were all had been playing it for years and years and years and were much
mm,
much better at it. So I would like on turn two I would like say, oh, I'm going to move these guys over here, and then they would all look at me and be like, yeah, you don't want to do that. And it was like a situation of like they knew how the game was going to be played, and it was
right.
just basically down to dice rolls. And if I was like not following strategy, because I rarely ever do, and I was just like, well, I'm going to do this, and they're like, no, it's turn two, you need to do this. And I'm
So
like,
you were
ugh.
playing checkers, they were playing chess. Yeah.
I was playing chess, but didn't quite understand the game, and they were trying to teach it to me. And I don't know. It wasn't my interest area, but I did get to play a little bit, so that was something fun. I also, like in college, really got into a friend of mine, one of the guys who was in that group that played Axis and Allies, and told me I was always doing it wrong. I played. He introduced me to Space Hulk, which was Games Workshop's kind of like it's a little bit like the movie Aliens. Like you got, your Marines
Okay.
walking around the hallways, except that they're Terminator Marines. So they're like in giant, suits of robot armor. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
instead of like the alien from the movies, you've got the Gene Stealers, which are basically kind of based off of those movies a little bit. And yeah, they're running around doing, and it's a tile based game. So you have these like hallways and stuff all set up, and there's doors you can open, and like when you can't
Nice.
see, like roughly where the gene stealers are, but they're just a blip until you can actually physically see them. Like they show up on your radar or whatever, and they're just a token. And then when they get
Got
into
it.
visual with you, you flip the token over, and it either says 1, 2, or 3 in the bottom, and that's how many
Ah,
gene stealers you put in that spot. So and there's not generally like, oh, I killed all the gene stealers and now the game is over. Like they just always keep coming. They just keep coming out of the vents and out of the special doorways that are set aside that they get to come out of.
okay.
And so like I think you can, some of the scenarios you can like lock down the doors or the vents so they can't keep coming out of there, but I don't think you could ever lock down all of them. So
Got it.
it's
Okay.
generally like I have an objective and I have to get there before this infinite number of enemies kills me. You know what I mean? So,
Okay. And did
and
like
it's
someone control them, or they were kind of like
usually you had one player who played yeah, like the Gene Stealers, and then you
okay.
could have multiple players because you could have multiple squads who would basically be playing co-op then to play the Space Marines. So yeah, I mean, and it's what taught me and introduced me to the world of like Warhammer 40,000 and all that stuff. So even when I was playing, I would be like reading through the instruction manual that came out that was all black and white, and just because they did put like some lore in there talking about the Emperor and talking about the Space Marines and all this stuff. And I was just
Okay.
like, this is cool. This was like 91 or maybe 92, and
Okay.
so yeah, that's kind of when I was first introduced to the world of the Games Workshop stuff, and that game had a soft spot in my heart, and still does. I own not the most recent version, but I own the version from like 2008. They had another
Okay.
like that was like version 3. Then they came out with kind of a 3.5 at some point, like maybe 2012, 2013.
Okay.
That one I don't own, but I do own the third edition. So.
Nice.
Um, and then about roughly the same time, maybe a little bit later, actually, than Shadowrun, which was a really fun RPG. And that was, again, some RPG stuff I did do in college. And a friend of mine that ran it was a really good GM, and we had a lot of fun with it. And we would sit around and eat snacks and drink beers and whatnot, and have
Hmm.
a good time. Throw a lot of dice, a lot of six-siders. That
Nice.
Shadowrun's a game of like they don't use normal like RPG dice in that game for the most part. It's basically just
Right.
all six-siders, and it's a whole pool of them. And when they say a pool, they don't mean like the concept of a pool. They mean like a kiddie pool that you get, like, and it just, yeah. So it's a lot of dice. Um, but yeah, that was also a lot of fun. I really enjoyed playing, and I've tried to do it a little bit since. And we even, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago, sort of tried to start another campaign, and it just didn't take off. It's at least not for me. Some of them played for a while longer, but I only kind of like was tertiary to it. So, but yeah. Nice. You have any other kind of like older games or things that you remember from back then?
I was thinking, I think that was kind of the big majority of them, really. Like I said,
there's always little things that crop up, but yeah.
Yeah, we didn't have that hobby store, so, it was kind of being introduced, from friends or whatever. But yeah, those were the main things.
You had to look a lot harder back then. I mean, it's Absolutely. A lot. I don't want to say like, well, it's a lot easier for the kids today, but it's certainly more accepted. I mean, you find out about you see, characters on popular TV shows playing Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, nowadays with Twitch and Critical Role and all that kind of stuff. I mean, they're doing Kickstarters
they were playing basically D&D and ET.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then they did the same type of thing in like Stranger Things and stuff like that. And now there's a tie-in like for Dungeons and Dragons with Stranger Things, and like Disney movies are coming out with affiliated role-playing games. That Onward, was that a Pixar or was that just Disney? I don't remember.
That was Pixar.
Was it? Okay. But yeah, they came out with like an RPG based off of the RPG that they played in the movie, which was,
it's still coming.
Kind of weird meta thing.
It's not out yet.
Oh, it's not. I thought it was.
No, waiting for COVID.
Oh, that's right. COVID, right? Yeah, because we saw it in Reno when we were there for the Game Manufacturers Association.
Then it was like they were planning on like May, June launch of that.
Yeah, yeah. But that'll come eventually, in theory.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you're seeing a lot of that kind of stuff. You're seeing that these types of games, like I said before, too, like you're starting to see games like Settlers of Catan and Ticket to Ride and stuff like that. And those things are just at Target,
Right.
Even Best Buy, for some weird reason. That doesn't seem like a thing you'd sell at Best Buy, but there it is.
Yeah.
I've seen them there. Yeah.
And all your bookstores are starting to carry more of the board games as well. And
Sure. Yeah. What kind of stuff now, though? Like, how is your gaming?
I don't play tabletop games anymore. No, just kidding.
Oh yeah, no, that's a good idea.
I realized it cost a lot of money, and I just stopped doing that. So
yeah, no, totally.
Says alternate universe Matt, who's a millionaire because he didn't spend it all on plastic and cardboard.
Sits in the corner and stares at the paint. I know you've changed to some degree. Well, both of us have changed to some degree as far as the overall genre, I would say. Although you're still sticking pretty heavily with board games and RPGs as well.
Yeah, and mostly, and it kind of was the same thing. D&D kind of got me back. Well, no, you're right. Board games got me back into it. That genre. I had work friends that were into board games, and at that time, I didn't know what a Euro game was or anything like that, and. Then I think that was around the time the Will Wheaton's tabletop started.
Oh, on YouTube,
yeah, and so between him inviting me to their like gaming group and the show, I got back into it, and then as I went to conventions, started seeing people playing D&D and go, oh yeah, I need to get back into that, and. Yeah, and then it's just spiraled from there. Then, a certain Adam person decided to tell me that I should go into miniatures. So, I play a lot of, I'm starting to play a lot more Kill Team. So, I like Kill Team. I really like it because it's the right amount for me. Like, I still think I'm too busy to build a 2,000 point army.
Of 40K, yeah. Regular Warhammer 40,000. Like it's a big army very frequently. Yeah. Although the newest version of Warhammer 40,000, which is like 9th edition, they're pushing real hard on this idea of also being able to play a version of Warhammer 40,000 called Combat Patrol, which is only a 500 point army. But still, even then, that's still like, I've got technically I've almost got a painted 500 point army, almost by accident. From the models that I painted on Twitch when the new starter box came out. It's still like 24 models, so that's a good deal. That's more than you would ever paint generally for Kill Team on a single army. I think the maximum your roster size can be in Kill Team is 20. But
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, most of the armies that I own for Kill Team are generally 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 models. I've got one army that's maybe 13, and that's Imperial Guard.
Okay.
So yeah, it is. It is definitely. It's a smaller game, both in physical size, like the play space. It's like 22 by 30 inches.
Right. Yeah. And
Whereas, like,
time wise, you can play in a couple hours, and
yeah, yeah,
it's a nice quick thing. But at the same time, I do see myself looking. When I'm at the hobby shop, looking at the big vehicles and stuff like that, going, oh, that'd be kind of fun to play with. And
yeah. I don't know. Again, and I'm not telling you don't. I'm obviously, plenty of people enjoy it. I just think that for me personally, I'm more of a skirmish style player. I don't want to build big armies much anymore. So I just want to build a lot of small armies, which kind of basically comes to the same thing. But
right, more
it's like
flavor.
it. Well, it's a
Yeah.
buffet is
Yeah.
basically the term that I use very
Right.
frequently. Instead of being like, oh, I'm going to eat a whole bunch of this, it's like, oh, I have a little bit of this and a little bit of this and a little bit of this, and that's
Right.
and that's why buffets are nice, but you still end up leaving the buffet like usually totally stuffed and kind of hating yourself. So you're
Right.
still eating roughly the same amount. You're just
Or
eating little
more.
bits of
Yeah.
different. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So yeah, no, I get you there. That's like for me as well. Like yeah, I would say like like these days it's Warhammer stuff in general, which can include 40K. Although I haven't played a game of actual 40K since the beginning of Eighth, I've been instead playing Kill Team, which is the kind of skirmish version of 40K. It's a smaller, slightly different game.
Right. Warhammer
And
Light.
a little bit, yeah. And then there's Age of Sigmar, which is the fantasy version of Warhammer.
Yeah.
And then I haven't played a game of that in a while, but I do actually have like 1,000-point army painted for Age of Sigmar, which is Age of Sigmar runs on fewer models to some degree. But then there's also now a newer game that's a skirmishy version of Age of Sigmar called Warcry. Which gets to use a lot of the same models and things like that. And that I've been really into lately. I've been painting. I've just finished, like I said, my second Warcry Warband, and I'm about to start. Well, I just started last night building my third, and I have several others planned. So
Nice.
again, there's that buffet thing. And then there's Necromunda, which takes place in the world of 40K, but it is not with 40K models. It's about kind of gangs that live in the Underhive, which is the kind of the basements of these giant hive cities that humans have a tendency to live on
Yeah.
these planets. And so it's a small skirmish game using completely different models, but they're very cool and I like them a lot. So
Yeah,
yeah.
gameplay wise and terrain look and everything else, I really like Necromunda.
Mhm.
I don't think it's probably for me as tempting and fun seeming to do to paint the models, like
Yeah.
just because they're mostly humans, right?
Yeah, that's true. There are generally, it's basically just like, yeah, I mean, technically now you can run a gang that is gene stealer cults, which are basically just
Okay,
humans
yeah.
that have started to kind of get infected by gene stealers. But
Right.
for the most part, everybody's a human. Yeah. So if you're
But
interested
the
in
actual
stuff
like
that's,
the actual story and grit and gameplay looks like a lot of fun. So while
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know if I would paint it, I would definitely would want to try. It is on my list of things I want to try out.
yeah. Well, if you ever get into kit bashing, if you ever decide to start getting into kit bashing for
Mm.
whatever reason, Necromunda models are spectacular for that because they come with lots and lots of parts, and there's a lot of different styles. And so I wasn't really playing Necromunda at first when it came out, but I was buying all the models because I need this kit because I want these guns and I want this shoulder pad and I want this and like there's just so many times that I'm trying to make like a new thing out of nothing where I start with, well, I'll grab like this and this and this out of this box and this out of another box of Necromunda models. And so, yeah, like for me, the modeling, the painting, all that kind of stuff is generally a bit more important. And Lord knows I do more of it time wise than I do of actual gaming these days, especially, since March. But yeah, so if you look at it, like there are some really cool parts just alone in the Necromunda boxes, I think too. So,
Nice.
but yeah, you've also got you've been talking a little bit about like kind of group style games and things like that.
Yeah. So yeah. But yeah, I still kind of again, it's harder to get a group of people together playing game, but conventions or
Hmm.
bigger events. I do like playing some of the more group size ones, like Captain Sonar. Really, I mean, I've only played it with 8. It's just like it's built for 8. It seems like it's best with 8. So,
Hmm.
but it's hard to have 8 people that are wanting to play that game all at the same time.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but
I do
when
see
you
it
do it,
at
then
conventions
it
and
can be
stuff
fun.
back in. Yeah,
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 that's a
definitely.
fun game. And then I like Secret Hitler a lot. Even though you always get the eye look, because I know I gave the eye look to people when they first told me about it.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
and I think that the rise of the game Among Us
Oh, the video
is
game.
yeah. I mean, it's pretty
Yeah,
much the
yeah.
same thing.
The little
Is your
space
social
people. Yeah.
deduction? Yeah, figuring out who the traders are. Like
I mean, all
that's
that kind of
what.
goes back to Werewolf to some degree.
Right. Yeah, I
Yeah,
just kind
exactly.
of like I felt like the way that the rules for Secret Hitler worked were a little bit more coy, and you didn't have to do
Hmm.
the whole like close your eyes and nobody's
Right.
looking, and you didn't have to worry about there was less of the meta stuff where like, oh, I heard somebody move, like
Hmm. Hmm.
there was less of that tricky type stuff going on. Um, I won't be shocked if somebody's already got Among Us license and will be
As a
doing a
board
game
game.
soon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. No, I could see that. That would make sense. Yeah, that'd be a good license. Honestly, that's for
yeah.
sure.
And if they haven't, then that was my idea, and you now owe me
Yeah,
something.
exactly. Trademark. Trademark. Copyright. Um, Yeah, be like I was just talking a little bit with kit bashing and stuff like that, and like using those Necromunda models to make other types of
Hmm.
models, and a lot of that for me has been based off of doing other indie skirmish games. Like you get your Warhammer, obviously that's like the 800-pound gorilla in the miniatures
Right.
industry. Their Games Workshop's the biggest company out there for that, but there are also plenty of indie skirmish games. Some of them smaller than others. And games that I've been playing that I really enjoy for that. Planet 28 is a very cool one. Star Breach is another very cool one,
Hmm.
and Zone Raiders. Planet 28 is made by Mammoth Miniatures, which is basically just one person, from what I know. His name is Nick. He's a nice guy.
Nice.
And then Star Breach was designed by Elijah, or yeah, Elijah, I think, and they're produced by or published by Slow Death Games, and that one's a little bit more. That one's a lot thicker. Planet 28 is like a 16-page book. It's very small, but I really
Right.
enjoy that aesthetic of it and everything. And Star Breach is a much thicker book, but it is also a free download if you want to download like a relatively simpler version. It's not that the rules are simpler; it's just like there's no artwork and stuff like that, but you can download it and play the rules.
Like a
And
printer
then
friendly version.
kind of, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then there is also, if you buy the book though, there is also like added like campaign stuff and things like that.
Nice. Okay.
And then Zone Raiders is, I think you basically just buy it. I don't know that they have a free version at all, but it's Zone Raiders I like, although it's really hard to build models for, I'm finding, because the factions are so very different
Oh,
than
okay.
anything else that's out there, because it's so far in the future that humans have sort of almost evolved and in a lot of weird ways, and so it's really hard to find models that I think fit the aesthetic that I love the story
Yes.
of it and the concept of it, but it's kind of harder to find models and to build stuff. Whereas Star Breach, like the army rules in Star Breach, the army lists are all kind of based off of 40k. So if you're like, well, if you have Tau, these guys, we're not calling them Tau, but they're kind of basically Tau. But then there's also
Okay.
like, these guys are basically Sith, so you don't, it's not just 40k, it's also Star Wars. There's also a bunch of like regular general tropes in there, like space pirates and
Mm.
nomads and things like that. So they have a lot of different army lists. And then Planet 28 basically has no army lists. You just kind of, you're building a little war band. It's usually 3 to 4 models, and they're just
Oh, okay.
basically you
That's
kind of you
quick.
kind of
Yeah.
custom build their stats, and then just that there's nothing really about factions. Doesn't get that deep, which is why it's like
No, are you
a
finding
pretty
that
thin
like
book.
are you finding that some of these like you're able to reuse models? It sounds like some of them not really, but some maybe. Or
I mean, between Planet 28 and Star Breach, I certainly have. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, just like I'll, because I'm building everything kind of grungy for both of those settings, because it's kind of the aesthetic that I like and everything. But yeah.
Nice.
Um, and you've also, I know you've gotten into Gloomhaven because I sold it to you.
Yes. Yes, you did.
Yes. Yeah, I did, because I won a copy, and then it was huge. It's a humongous
And then I
box.
had my hernia surgery right shortly thereafter,
Yeah,
which
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they claimed that that wasn't related, but I don't know.
Right,
But yeah,
exactly.
for me, that was kind of a nice way to kind of do D&D light. Like
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like the fact that it's a good entry game for people that aren't really wanting to play D&D fully, or if you don't want to have to worry about setting up a big campaign. Yeah, it's just I find it's just it scratched a very nice little niche for me.
But it
Also,
is
see,
very deep.
yeah, it's super deep,
Yeah.
lots of stuff. I mean, the amount of cardboard miniatures in it is just
Mm-hmm.
crazy. And I think I like that too because it kind of reminds me of kind of that old school gaming feel, like your 80s, where you didn't, it wasn't 5 boxes of little plastic miniatures.
Right.
You might have some, your main characters are you know, the sculpts, but everything else is just cardboard with a little stand. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Totally does. Um, I don't know. Otherwise, as I've been getting into before getting into the indie kind of skirmish games, which are very frequently like one person operations, I also started getting into slightly less indie skirmish games, like mainly stuff, a lot of stuff from Osprey games. Um,
Mm, yeah.
I've been really enjoying Zona Alpha, especially now that they came out with some free like single player rules, so you could kind of like play it that way.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
a- yeah, and then Zona Alpha is kind of like a modern age sort of. It's basically like aliens came to Earth, hung out for a little bit, and then left, and they left all this junk behind. And now those areas are cordoned off by the government because they are kind of dangerous, but there's also really cool stuff in there. So you're basically playing
Oh,
a
very
small
cool.
group of kind of
Yeah.
treasure hunters who are trying to break in and go in there and get some things and get out without getting
Okay.
turned inside out by a strange magnetic field, or attacked by the military or whatever, that kind of stuff.
Nice.
And then Frostgrave is kind of, I don't want to say the same. And Frostgrave just had a new edition that came out, second edition.
I
But
was gonna say, I
Frostgrave is
think.
also about treasure hunting, and you're treasure hunting basically a city that was under ice for 1,000 years due to a very possibly botched or potentially filled with malice spell, and it is now thawed out, and now treasure hunters mostly, are going back in there. So it can be a co-op game, but it's a little bit more adversarial. But it's also, you're playing against the board because sometimes skeletons show up, or kobolds, or who knows what.
Nice.
And again, both of those are basically, there's no set of models that you buy for it, so you end up kind of making your own stuff and using different companies and things like that, and it's a lot of fun.
Very cool.
Yeah. What other kind of, you got anything else that you've been playing recently, or
Um.
that you like these days?
Yeah, I was thinking about all the stuff you did when you talked about Osprey. I remembered
Mm.
about the fact that we do not play Car Wars enough. We need to. I think
Gaslands.
Gaslands. That's
Yep.
that's that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah. No, I'd like to get
Like,
together and do that again as well. I guess you can
yeah.
play it on Tabletop Simulator, because some of the
Huh.
folks in my
Hmm.
Discord have been doing that, and we should look
Okay.
into that maybe.
Yeah,
But
because
yeah,
I mean, I've got basically a thing built. I just need to.
some cars. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I need to get some cars built. I've got them bought. I just don't have them built, and then I need to paint them. Yeah, Gaslands, for those of you who don't know, is a you use basically like Hot Wheels or Matchbox cars. You kind of modify them up and make them look a little post-apocalyptic, and then you have the set of rules again from Osprey, that you can drive around. You can shoot each other with machine guns on your cars. You can smash into each other. There's all kinds of stuff, and it's kind of a race. You're basically going around and hitting certain points in the map that you have to hit.
Yep. And
Yeah.
I won the last time we played.
That's true. You did. That's true. That's a very good point. Yeah. But yeah, it got real popular. It was one of their kind of like little blue cover book series. They make these thin little kind of soft cover books with kind of a
Right.
blue cover and then some artwork, and it got real popular. And then they finally made a nice hardcover with a whole full art cover, and it's called Gaslands Refueled, I believe.
Yeah, I think
Is
so. I
is the
think that's.
newer, and it's got like some
Mhm.
updated rules and added stuff and campaign stuff and things like that.
Yep.
So yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And then Shatter Crown. I always forget to mention Shatter Crown from Gaddis Gaming,
Hmm.
which is the whole World
Alternate
War
history,
One.
World War One. Yep.
Yeah, the basically War of the Worlds happened, and then now World War One is going on, but everything
With alien technology and stuff.
has the people they have scrapped together some alien tech, and brought stuff in, and
Yeah.
you get the Tesla and Edison stuff coming into it, and stuff
Like
like
they
that.
never
So
came up with that in the book? Like, I don't think there was ever a sequel to War of the Worlds, but like when all those aliens died from the common cold, then they left behind a whole bunch of stuff.
Right.
And that's where Shattered Crown goes, is like, well,
Yep.
what did we do with all that stuff? Well, here you go.
Yeah,
So,
he's got Empire Falls is the Kickstarter is next month, I believe.
And that's kind of the World War II version.
Yeah, he's doing it in World War II, which so I'm excited about that. I know that like he had the ball tank was earlier this summer, which was like kind of a sneak preview. But yeah, I've been seeing some of the new stuff coming out for that, like the artwork and polish on it is just it's gonna be fun. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That was my first. Yeah, that was my first miniature army I ever bought.
Yeah, Shattered Crown. That's right.
Yep. So that's sitting there. I need to play that more often too. It's hard to play some of these games remote, but
man. Yeah, I know it's a bummer. All right. Well, anyway, I hope that some of you enjoyed just us kind of prattling on a little bit about games that we used to enjoy and games that we, to some degree, still enjoy, but then new games that we're playing now as we've gotten older, or as that time has gone on and games have changed something.
And wiser
kind of stuff. Wiser. Certainly, we've gotten wiser. Lord knows. Yeah, that's for sure. So I don't know, like if you want to put some things, if you're watching this on YouTube, and by watching I mean basically listening, but put some stuff in the comments and let us know about games that maybe that you also enjoyed, that were some of the things that we mentioned, or some other kind of things, or just just say hi, whatever. That's cool.
Or you're like, I am sick of what they're talking about. I wish they would talk about this, and because you have a great topic idea.
You got a great topic idea, absolutely drop it in there, or shoot us an email, and I'll tell you right here what the email address is in just a sec. Thanks again for listening to this episode of the GameFor Podcast. If you've got questions or comments and you're watching on YouTube, please leave a comment below. If you are listening via your favorite podcast player or just aren't into the whole YouTube comment section thing, then you can feel free to reach out to us via email at podcast@iamgamefor.com, or you can send us topic ideas as well. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And check out our website at www.iamgamefor.com. That is www.iamgamefor.com. Thank you.